As someone who actually enjoyed the Governor's 2-episode diversion last week, and also as someone who likes Beth, Slapdown was a bit of a drag. Not fully, there was some good stuff here. But it definitely was a hard come down after the Cannibal saga. So much so that it had me wondering the entire time what this new group's sinister secret was. And the truth, when revealed, wasn't really all that dark or exciting considering what we've already seen on this season. Not that I want to discourage the series in any form from telling new stories or taking us up and out of our usual comfort-discomfort zone, but this was a lot of suspense with not that much payoff. Perhaps, now that we know that this is to be a two-partner, things will get a bit more intense next week with the inclusion of Carol and Daryl. That was a nice little twist at the end, by the way, to have Carol getting wheeled in, one that might give us some indication as to why she may have wanted to stay in the shadows at the end of last week's episode. Not that anything completely horrific was happening to the lowest rung of the Atlanta cop crew, but I did think it was interesting once again to deal even more precisely in fact with the Zomocalypse survivor hierarchy. Something that Father Gabriel made me think about recently, and something that this story directly addressed, with those who were deemed weak being subservient to those who were stronger. In this case, an actual indentured servitude system in place with no true time limit. Kristen Woods guessed it here as in over her head cop Dawn leading an off-kilter isolated group of survivors who never left Atlanta, just stayed behind for years now in one of the hospitals. She was strict, dangerously unreasonable, and had a nasty penchant for turning a blind eye towards her officers' grotesque habits because they are her enforcers and runners. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting given the mysterious, cultish look of their ass-howling vehicles that roam the surrounding area. Though actually getting back to somewhere metropolitan was a nice surprise. I did think we'd see a city again until someone got to all around DC. It is funny to think though too that Rick has basically gained no ground in 5 seasons. He's still somewhere outside Atlanta. Granted, he headed towards Atlanta when he was terminus bounded. Ultimately, it just makes the trek to DC feel even longer, seeing as how none of them have even probably left 130 square mile area. Anyhow, back to Beth and the survivor hierarchy. We know Beth for most part, and we know she's more capable than one might think at first sight. No, she never came close to being the strongest in Rick's group, but we still knew she had more than the moderate amount of survival skills. Coupled with the fact that she often didn't care about her own safety in certain scenarios, with the last season still having us shown her stubborn side. So this episode also doubled as a platform for Beth to once again showcase her admirable yet limited chutzpah. It wasn't necessarily a theme or lesson we needed to see again, especially given the fact that while I may like her, I still have little confidence that Beth could survive out in the open zombie-filled Atlanta streets. I knew she could escape her quasi-captors, but escape to what became the bigger question. She gave little to no indication that she wanted to find Daryl or any other member of her crew. And she had no reason to believe that the laundry room Noah was a capable zombie killer either. So keeping that in mind, it was admirable of her to kill off a bunch of walkers while Noah escaped. But there's a good chance he got taken out minutes later out there in the city. Speaking of Noah, there were some fun guest stars this week. Everybody Hates Chris's Tyler James Williams played Noah, while Whale Rider's Keisha Castle Hughes played Joanne, an abused young woman who tried to escape but instead got her arm cut off. Later on, she turned into a walker for one of this chapter's few moments of gold, though nothing probably tops Beth and Noah on top of the pile of elevator corpses. Except maybe for Gorman force-feeding Beth that lollipop after it had been in his rotten rapey mouth. On a weird side note here, this episode reminded me of the moment in season 1 when the women were complaining about still being the ones who were expected to do laundry. Remember that bit? And it was funny how roles were being dictated during those initial days under Shane. Especially when you consider that both Laurie and Jackie had risked their lives on the supply run to Atlanta. Well, that was sort of akin to the odd chore delegation topic that was being addressed in this week. How tasks should be divided up. It was about assessing people's worth based on their skills. How tasks should be divided up. It was about assessing people's worth based on their skills. Unfortunately for Beth, Since Don was also meant to be a contrast to Rick's leadership style, the Grady Memorial Hospital crew was being run by a bunch of power-tripping cops convinced they had to maintain some sort of informal prison system because they imagined everyone could be rescued at any moment, which led to rotten behavior and startling reactionary behavior. In fact, one of the most cutthroat things done this week was that Dr. Edwards had Ben accidentally kill the convalescing rival doctor for him so that he could remain offered to Dawn. A pretty solid, ultra-serialized episode of Gotham this week with Penguin's Umbrella. An installment that felt like a bit of a dangerous game changer for Gordon, a sort of point of no return for a character who was seemingly all alone in his crusade. There are TV shows that are so unapologetically bold, they literally bowl you over with their content. Here are the 10 boldest TV series that up the boldness quotient with every coming season.